Hello everyone, it is Sarah Fitzgibbon here from Avtinson Hospitality Success School, and I am here with Lucas Reid, publican at the Kelly Hotel in Warrnambool, and our commercial cookery trainer at Avtes, Evan Gain. Hi guys.
Hi, how you going, Sarah?
Yeah, good. Thanks for joining me today. What we're doing is we're just going to have a little chat. I recently, Lucas and the Kelly have, developed a new menu, and I was really impressed with the way they went about it and some of their use of local supplies particularly, and the way they approached it. And so I asked him if he'd be happy to come and have a chat to us about their process. So we're just going to really have a chat about that, and hopefully you guys will get something out of it. So Lucas, how important is the food aspect? Would you call it a bistro or a restaurant? And how important is that to the pub?
Oh, it's massive these days, but I probably call still a bistro.
Yep.
It's that sort of difference now with pubs. You can't be just purely bistro. You have that sort of perception there that everything is potentially fried, where we don't want to be a restaurant because then people may not come to us every fortnight or every week. So we still call it a bistro.
Yeah, cool. And you've got a couple of different areas in the pub here. You've sort of got this front bar area, and then the bistro through the back there, and a function space.
Outdoor space.
Do you serve the same menu in all the areas, or do you have to?
Yeah, we do serve the same menu. We do have a bar seniors sort of option on our regular menu.
Yep. But
you can enjoy that throughout the whole venue. And we do have some what we call TAB specials. And they're only promoted in the TAB, but if someone was to be sitting out here and want one of those items, then we're happy to serve them.
Yeah, that's just a bit more of a service orientation, isn't it? So
just
providing service to your regular clients as opposed to generating revenue.
Yeah, it's a combination of both, because you have some people that might be meeting up with someone and they want to have rissoles.
Yep.
And we've got them on the TAB specials board at the moment, and we used to have them on the regular menu. So you you find that some older people might want that, or some younger people, or they might be meeting grandparents and things like that, and they want a smaller meal, and they're sitting in the bistro. So you just got to be all things to all sort of people.
Public house, I guess.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
And is that like letting people sort of eat wherever they want? That's just letting people do what they want, like being there for the customer, I guess, and letting them dictate what they want to do or what they want to experience.
All the rooms in the hotel have a theme, but pretty much I find, like, if I was touching up, I prefer to sit where we're sitting today.
Yeah.
But then you find that some people prefer to be in the bistro, sitting on a seat with the back.
Yeah.
And move around the venue, do different things through the night.
Yeah, that too. So all the different spaces, like, without being gender specific, you sort of tend to find a lot of ladies will sit up here and have their lunch if there's like 2 or 3 ladies, but if they're with partners and things like that, they'll probably go down to the bistro.
Yeah.
Just different dynamics.
Different dynamics, different rooms. Cool. And in terms of that, like the importance to the business, is the food a big profit centre these days, and is it has it been increasingly so? Like, is that different to times in the past?
It's definitely all changed, but definitely for us, because we don't have gaming.
Yep.
So every centre, and I think if you asked a gaming venue, that they'd still pretty much, the food has to stand alone on itself as a profit centre these days. There are items, don't get me wrong, that we supply that are sort of loss leaders. Like, they'll get people in, and then hopefully we can get them to have another drink and things along those lines.
Awesome.
But as a general rule, every area needs to make money these days in order
and
to
we'll
make
talk
money.
about those, like the profitable items and stuff later for sure. And do you think that importance of the food is affected or driven by that decrease in people drinking that we're sort of seeing come through in the last few years?
It's tricky to say, but I think that people are, because there is the cost of physically buying like the protein sort of portion of meals, that people perhaps aren't cooking them or eating them at home.
Mm-hmm.
They're busy. They go, well, I've got to buy that piece of steak and at the supermarket, and it might be $9.50, and I can go and get a really high quality steak for $25, and I don't need to cook.
Yeah, buy all the veggies.
And all that kind of thing. So I think that's got a lot to do with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. I'd like to talk now about, I guess, the development of, this new menu that you've recent menu, I guess. What was the planning process? How do you go about developing a new menu? How do you know when it's time, or what's the timeline? What sort of research or contributions do you get? Is it just you, that sort of thing? And do you trial out things on the new menu, or do you implement?
It's time consuming.
Yeah.
So I think you hear that sort of cliche that you change it seasonally.
Yeah.
We tend not necessarily to do that. We tend to change our menu. There's we'd like to try change it twice a year.
Yep.
And that just pretty much falls in when there's breaks in events. Like for us, after May races, after long weekends, you don't want to be going into those periods with a menu that you've only been running for 3 days.
Yeah. Okay.
And you have some time then to actually spend.
Yeah, and we're always trying to test items on the specials board throughout the whole year. But yeah, for us, I like to change it at least twice.
Yeah.
And yes, the season's sort of a little bit, we'll probably shoot for sort of early October.
Mm-hmm.
And then
so that's ready for Christmas.
It's ready for spring racing and Christmas, and sort of the change in the season a little bit. And then also you sort of change for the chefs. So
sort of thing.
very much so. And that's something that someone like a mentor of mine told me. When you feel it's time to change the menu, normally you'll probably hear your customers looking for a change, and then also the presentation of the food sometimes, or the quality of what is being delivered. The people making it might be like, it's time for a change.
Yeah, that's probably not something I thought about with your staff. Having to look at the food all the time makes a difference as well.
Yeah,
they do have an impact on the sales too.
So they're the sort of 4 points that I sort of look at. It's just that because it's not just changing the menu for the customer or for the staff or us. It's like training the new staff on the new menu, and there's just and then literally changing it in the point of sale, designing the menu, working with the graphic designer. The physical change of the menu is really important.
Yeah.
Not just changing the items.
Yeah.
Because
all those associated, I guess, back end, you'd almost call them things surrounding what a change on the menu means.
Yeah, it's not just a change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how long out do you have a set sort of timeline, or not? You've been doing it a while, I guess.
Well, this last one I wanted to probably do 2 months before we got it finished, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
But just things. We run a lean sort of management structure, so it didn't get put on the back burner, but it just in between people taking holidays and things like that, and a couple of changes in the kitchen. It just happened when it happened. But realistically, I sort of have a bit of a 6-week window. You spend 3 weeks with the kitchen staff, just trying new ideas and coming up with things. And
Suppliers give you some ideas with the menu as well, do you find? Not so much. New products or anything like that? Or is
well, they might give Bill, who's our head chef, some inspiration with new products and perhaps some items that are selling well in other areas. But as a general rule, the inspiration probably comes from like a price point. They're trying to push an item that is going to be good margin for them and good margin for us. And that's the reality of
cost of inflation.
Of everything. So
constantly increasing margin.
Well, cost is a really important aspect, obviously, in menu design and costing out items, but also figuring out what your profit margins are, like you said, and your loss leaders and stuff like that. So you work with the kitchen, and then you trial stuff maybe on specials and stuff like that.
So pretty much we try to keep ahead of the food trends, or with the food trends to an extent. But we also have to sort of understand that we are a pub, and probably there's probably only about 15% of the items that I can change on a menu. Because we have those standard stock things that people expect, and they sell well. So
which
are your Parmas and your Kiev and things like that, pizzas. You've got to follow the trends, but you also need to stay
with what's else.
Stay true to what you're doing.
So your brand, your vision, what the pub's known for. Your customers, what they want.
Like but then again, those people that are following the trends might be the ones that are deciding where you go for dinner. So that's why you need to keep up with it.
True. So what trends did you, trial for this last one, or have you introduced? And were there any that you tried that you didn't go ahead with?
Well, what tends to happen is you read, whether it be on the internet or you go to Melbourne, you look and see what's going on, and then I tend to come back with a lot of ideas, or customers tell you about ideas, or friends, or whoever, family. And then I go to Bill, and then Bill looks at them and goes, they're too expensive. So pretty much, which is good, because like you don't want. I think that's where you I would eventually have got to that stage myself after I've got over the fact that these are selling really well in Melbourne. But it's nice to have that experience where he just looked at that item and just goes, you know what?
It's too labour intensive.
It's too, and the protein portion of it is just too expensive. It's popular because it's on MasterChef. That piece is used. If we had got it 2 years ago, we would have been able to do it, kind of thing. So
is it also dependent on skill level too in the kitchen? The training that you're doing inside the kitchen, the dynamic between the head chef and the apprentices, and at times does that fluctuate through the year, or is that quite steady?
We've been lucky, I'm very lucky, solid guy. But it does a little bit, but we try not to put anything on the menu that we can't keep doing consistently. And if we do try something that is that way or is a little bit fiddly, we'll just put on the specials board. And just have 10 serves, and once it's sold out, it's
Tuesday night.
sold out.
Get a few extra people in the door on a quieter night.
And that allows, I guess, them to, the kitchen to have that sort of creativity and try new things without it having to be on the menu.
Oh, definitely.
So it keeps the interest there. And so, what trends have you noticed, or what trends did you, incorporate those
in this new menu? Well, definitely the dietary requirements, sort of health conscious. It is. My wife will still say that there's not enough healthy items on the menu, but again, that's one of those things about
It's
balance,
Yeah.
staying true to the pub theme.
You
but-
can only have sort of this many that fit into that.
Yeah.
Exactly, because you've got to,
It's still a night out,
and then your wastage and all that kind of thing. So, but the reality is those guests are probably the ones that are deciding where the larger groups go for birthdays and function.
With the dietary requirements, so there's vegetarian that you were quite considerate of, as
Yep.
well as what other sort of health, I guess, dietary
like-
requirement things.
Like gluten-free,
Yeah.
Is it whole grains, that sort of stuff?
nut-free,
Yeah.
yeah. Like obviously the kitchen does have nuts in it, so we always
May contain traces.
yes, may contain traces, and that's something that on our next menu we are going to put something which I found, which I noticed on another menu in Melbourne. It's just very, very nicely worded that we'll do our very best with all of the things, but we can't guarantee it just because
It's like a disclaimer, really, because
It is.
if you breach that, I think there's some large fines in terms of that particular requirement in the Food Act. So that'll probably increase at some point too, I'd imagine. So getting on top of it now is
if someone says to a wait staff member who's perhaps had only a little bit of experience and they just said that they have an allergy versus being allergic, how they handle that, just that question there to the kitchen can have some ramifications that this thing will potentially disclaimer, as Evan said.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's
I've been in 3 venues that have had anaphylactic shock with clients, and it's not something you want to experience if you can, just avoid it completely. So, and particularly if there's any type of risk to the establishment, you've got to avoid all that at every chance. Yeah.
Let's talk about that training, that back of house stuff with the new menu. What sort of training do you do with the staff when you do have a new menu?
Well, with this menu here, the items that we change, we make, and then they get to try, and then pretty much one-on-one, I tend to sort of just break down the item with the individual. Like we don't have a large. Well, I think we probably have about 12 staff that sort of work front of house regularly in the bistro. So,
so in terms of breaking it down for people, do you like the ingredients? Do you also do the cooking methods and this, like the presentation or the dietary requirements, or?
pretty much all of the on the physical menu, the requirements, like whether it's gluten-free, whether it's vegetarian, are marked with the pretty generic sort of things these days, the V or the G. But realistically, there's really, like if you're running a restaurant or a cafe, you pretty much would have as much as you can gluten-free now. Like there's good product out there. Like we have gluten-free parmas now. We have a separate fryer that's just used for gluten-free.
Wow. Cool.
So, and
that's
so
how big an impact, like you have, and how many fries do you have?
we have 6.
So you've got, that's like between 15 and 20%.
Yeah. So we just have one single
dedicated.
one dedicated to that. So
Yeah, that's a great idea.
yeah. Like there's like if you're opening a fish and chip restaurant now, you just open it all gluten-free.
Yeah.
Just give yourself those options.
You'd just be there. Yes, you're going to pay a little bit more for your the
stuff.
crumbs and the
Yeah.
things along those lines, but
It's just easier.
it's just
But it's-
easier.
it's still- it's
It
a
opens
place
you
for-
up to a whole
And
to
there's
everyone.
still a
Yeah.
place there for bread and gluten
Yeah.
and stuff,
And,
It's
you
still
know,
an important part of the...
Then it doesn't change the dish. 'Cause it's
No, it
always
doesn't. It's
gluten-free.
always the same.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And can you tell us what on the menu are your most popular items and what are the most profitable items? Do you keep them? or are
obviously
they-
garlic bread and things like
Yeah.
that. Garlic pizza are the ones that we like to sell, and obviously they're
Good add-ons to it.
add-on to. We've sort of got our parmas.
Yep.
Like our parmas are really profitable for us. our chicken Kievs are we make them here,
Oh, wow.
that's
Yeah.
a great
like a
idea.
lot, and that's where a big focus of our stuff that we're going to do with the online stuff, social media, is that
That's a good point of difference.
it's done in a lot of places, I think, but
Oh, I wouldn't assume that.
we wouldn't assume that.
No, that people make their own.
But
videos
yeah,
and stuff.
but we're going to be really focused on it because we
Well, you've got
we don't
control
want to
over
lower-
quality.
lower
I think.
prices.
You can control the price and you can control quality. And through the week, when it's a bit quieter, you can produce product from staff that are not as busy, or maintain your staffing level. Sort of helps keep people happy when they're busy too. I think it's.
And from a marketing perspective, it's a great part of the story, and
It is,
gives you a lot
yeah.
of a lot of content to share around that. Interesting. And let's talk. I know, Evan, can you pass me that little promo
I
thing?
can.
Let me see it there. You do some semi-regular or regular events where you put on sort of special menus. So rather than just a special sport. So for this one, for example, is your upcoming American night. And so it's sort of surrounded around, but it's not just, it's like the July 4th Independence Day theme.
Yep.
But it's not, it goes for that week, yeah?
Yes.
Yeah. So in terms of doing the menu for that, I know we've spoken before and you said, it's, this for example is really good because it fits in well seasonally. It's quite cost effective in terms of that style of food. Do you follow the same process in your menu development, or is this just more of a less formal and it's a bit easier? Do you find with your special events that you do?
Well, with the events we talk you've got to give people a reason to come out as well, and you've got to tie it in with that reason. So
and
winter,
winter
4th of July, the food, it just all sort of works.
An American style food is obviously very popular.
Yeah,
at the
it's very
moment.
popular, and I don't think that that it's sort of going to die down at all.
Yeah.
Even burgers, they've been around for 3 years now, and we've always had them on the menu.
Yeah.
And we used to promote them heavily probably 2 years ago, but we've sort of just dropped off because there are a number of other places in town doing burgers.
And do you find people I would find people expect a burger these days on the menu anyway. It's a bit of an expectation.
Yeah, they do, and we'll probably relaunch ours.
Yep.
It's just that there was becoming a price point sort of thing for us. People were starting to
Getting it cheaper from a burger supplier that only do that sort of
yeah. So
Pay $2 less or something.
and things. So for us, it wasn't good business to be
Have that as your point of difference.
Have it as a point of difference.
Yeah.
So we changed it up.
Yeah, cool. Well, I love this idea.
Yeah, no, it'll.
It's so
And the reason that we've done it over the week is last year we just did it on the one night.
Yeah.
We did it the night before, just casually, without it being promoted, just on the special sport to run through, get a bit of practice with the service. But it just we sold out, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But it's also it's difficult because then people come, and if some people came at 7:30 and we'd sold out then. It wasn't as though we'd sold out at 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
But
so the first time you've done that particular event.
Yeah. And so.
Yeah, how do you prepare for that? I guess you just make an assumption about how many.
Yeah, we made an assumption. Obviously, we didn't make a big enough assumption, but that can be detrimental to the brand or to the hotel if people come in and they don't get it. People just expect, and that's fine. That's what we are. They expect to be able to come in and get it. What you can't. You run out of it, and I'm like, well,
sorry.
it's always made a reservation. If
they need to exceed expectations, always is part of it.
So I think it's a really good idea that you spread it out over the week too, because not everyone wants to do Friday night drinks or whatever day it's on or whatever, and it gives that sort of longevity to the promotion as well.
Definitely, because there is a cost with getting these made and promoting it. So where you used to be able to possibly do a one night thing and it'd be cost effective to promote it for one night, it's probably not.
Yeah. Like I saw you got the sandwich board as well.
Yeah. So we used to change that. We used to change that kind of thing, the feel in the pub every pretty much month.
Yeah.
Where now we just change it with a larger promotion. A thing.
And was that probably every 2 months or depending?
Yeah, we probably I'm trying to sort of probably get it every 3 months, just with the costs of. Pretty much it's probably like $1,000 by the time you get everything done. The floor signs, the A-frame, the artwork.
Decorating or anything?
We put up the flag and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so
and
now
what's good with this, I guess you can reuse some of that. I mean, not this printed stuff because it has the dates, but like the flag or that sort of stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, and we try to utilise suppliers that might sell American beer and stuff like that to get that all the stuff. Yeah.
It's a bit of fun.
Do you cost out all your menu items?
Yeah, so I have a guy that gives me a hand. He's our accountant, but he's more sort of like I just sort of run things by him. He's sort of like a business advisor more, but he is a qualified accountant. He does our accounting. And the good thing about it there is that Bill, who's our chef, supplies the portions and everything, and then does the costing on the sheet, and then he gives it to Fred.
Right. So the chef does that. The costing of the menu
costing,
item, and it spells it all out, and then
gives it to Fred, and then Fred double checks the work to make sure it all adds up.
Yep.
And then that way it takes it. Takes that sort of conversation between operations and the chef, me. I'll eventually have the conversation, but it's partial. Because you always have that conversation.
I did want to talk about that. The relationship between.
I can tell you that Bill has never said no to any idea that I've come up with in the 5 years we've had the pub. Literally.
He's not one of those emotional chefs, is he?
No, he is just like he is there, and I'll come up with the idea, and then he'll go.
Think about it,
and then he'll go. We can do it this way.
Do you think
so? It's not a no. It's just we can do it this way, or come up, or we need to come up with another idea.
Does that have a lot to do with your approach to him as well? Because I notice you're sort of measured and you've got a sort of a calm demeanour. Do the way you approach your chef in a professional manner does that reflect on how he behaves with you too?
There's definitely everyone has their moments, but it's not a. Evan, I think it gets a little bit easier when you're going okay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You never.
And he's been in the role now for a little while.
He's an experienced chef, but also I don't think he ever takes it for granted, nor do I, that we are going okay. So I think that's the key, because he needs to continually change, and the business needs to, and I need to. I think that's the key, and I'm hoping that even more time where he could potentially spend a little bit less time in the kitchen. He loves it.
Yeah.
So he loves being in the kitchen. But
I've noticed that with some other.
I find it hard not being in the operation, but
head chefs. Other head chefs that I know that find it really hard to not be on the tools or with the team, that sort of thing. But the value they add just in being in the room is really huge as well, and just the knowledge in terms of product, that sort of stuff. As a chef, I know he's about 60. He could retire, but he enjoys it so much that he can literally just stand on the pass and direct traffic and make the business successful from that point of view.
Does Bill, the head chef, use like recipe cards at all? Like, I don't know the size.
Standard
What's the size of the team? Standardised recipes. I guess.
There's obviously everything is made to a recipe.
Yeah.
Like, do we have the like a picture of how the food
Like would get plated up
is
and
plated
stuff.
up in the kitchen? Like, I think we have 2 dishes that we have at the moment, and they're ones that possibly there could have been some inconsistencies in the presentation.
So that's
So he would do it, but he would show them how to do it, and then obviously whether we try not to have the same days off. So that means that
so there's one person in a leadership position.
So sort of watching the food come out. But again, if you had really inexperienced or you were leaving unsupervised staff that were inexperienced,
stuff,
then you might have the recipes. Yeah, like my sort of thing from the Cali is that if I was a chef,
What's the expectation?
and I was looking for a position, then I think that we have enough. Yeah, they have enough creative as much as they wanted to do, but they still have that, consistency of work. They have consistency of pay and consistency of holidays and consistency of all the things that you value in your life.
Your support of the team is, I think, what gives you that holistic approach, and it's set the culture here at the Cali to be pretty steady in terms of
Yeah, we are steady.
Yeah, good team, good retention.
Yeah, like you have the change.
Yeah.
You have the gradual changes, but as a general rule, we're a fair place to work. Yeah.
And I also wanted to talk about, I know we've mentioned it, that consistency in the food, both like the production, the food itself, and the service of the food. And how do you, I guess, ensure, you want consistency in that because that matters to your customers and it makes things easier for staff. So how do you keep that consistency? How do you ensure that?
Well, Bill does a good job with it, but I think like our food, like 80%. Well, no, I shouldn't say just always 80, but there's only 2 or 3 items on the menu that aren't very forgiving.
Okay. Yep.
And that's when we're designing the menu, you want to look at things that the dish might be a little bit forgiving. It may not be at its best
that
all
would be
the
my
time.
expectation too in a pub, that when it's full and you've got a couple hundred people in here, the service demands become quite extreme. So being able to have those dishes on there can help you a little bit more at times.
Yeah, I think like you mentioned about the service and that kind of thing. I think that like fundamentally, if you get a Parma and the cheese is not quite melted like it normally is, but your chips are still hot, then people are the person eating that is not going to probably ruin their overall experience. But if the
Or the chips have
were
a
cold,
2 to 3 minute leeway
our
between
biggest
them,
our biggest it's not complaint, but our hardest consistent thing is definitely the chips.
Really?
Yeah, because the supply of them, like they go through like 2 or 3 runs a year, and Bill will be able to tell you the times a year. Okay, they're all mashed into one, but where they come out and they're not
cooking
good.
from frozen, or they defrosting and they're cooking.
Normally they're defrosted, but it's the time of the year that the chip comes and you've got
the sugar content inside the chips.
Yeah,
and
so
it changes the sort of burn point. So it's almost like you need to adjust your fryer oil, or the temperature needs to come down by 5 degrees or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's very hard to put your finger on because you're not really sure when it's going to happen.
And they tend to be smaller. The chips tend to be smaller. And like I know, I think Bill changes the brand of the chip, not the style of the chip. Like we use a thicker chip. We do that for a number of reasons. It holds the heat better. It takes a little bit longer to cook. and they last a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But yeah, like will change from brand to brand depending on what they've
Time of year.
what they've
Yeah.
got. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I tell you the truth, that's something that
That's
I've
his-
probably learned in the last 5 years.
Yeah,
I didn't know
it's-
that sort of.
No,
I knew
well-
that you have seasons, but I didn't think that
It
it affected
things
frozen
that
chips.
much. Yeah. No. Well,
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that's really it for today for my questions. Evan, did you have any other questions?
No, I thought you covered it all. That's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Thank you so much for
Pleasure.
your
Thanks.
time, Lucas. Thanks for sharing
No, it's
all
good.
that information with us and your experience and telling us all about the Cali. It was great.
Cheers. Thanks,
Thanks.
guys. Pleasure.
Bye.